As a digital marketing professional, it is very likely that at some point you will be tasked with generating leads. So lead generation is a whole field, right? It's a whole branch of digital marketing that people specialize in and they become whizzes at, and it can be incredibly complex. However, if you were in a smaller company or if you were simply wanting to learn this, today I'm going to give you an example of a lead generation campaign that we ran. And we have a template for lead gen, and essentially we know all the little pieces, all the comms, all the messaging that has to be created, all the assets, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do it so that you can get at least an idea of what a lead gen campaign looks like and how you could pull one off for yourself. If you like information like this and trainings like this, please subscribe to my channel. I would be more than happy to have you around, and that way you'll get notified when I put up new content, which I do whenever I feel like it. Okay, so this is an example of a lead gen campaign. The very first thing you need to know is that you have to get very specific about your audience in a lead gen campaign. I'll come back to this imagery in a second because this is actually a very helpful flow chart that shows you all the pieces and contingencies which are vital to pulling off a good lead gen campaign. But basically, you want to know 4 things about your audience. Very simple, typical marketing kind of effort that you probably are familiar with if you've ever done ICP work and all that. So the persona would be, what are kind of the roles in the industry, what kind of companies are they at, all the basic parameters that you would put around a typical marketing persona. You want to pick an industry. It's important that you have some kind of qualifying criteria. So, for instance, if you say, well, we sell to the C-suite. We're a SaaS company and we want to get in front of the CTO in an organization. That's not specific enough for lead gen. You have to think about, you have to be able to find the people you're looking for. So think about the kind of data that's available to you. Now, there are plenty of platforms that generate lists, right? Zoom Info, and there's tons of them that you can use to generate lists of people. But even if you do that, you have to input the right queries. And so in order to do that, you need a couple different dimensions of data, and job title is not sufficient. You need to think of the size of the company, and then I really think that the best lead gen efforts work based on industry because it's something that you can whittle down to on platforms like LinkedIn, and it gives you a way to shape content. So unless you're only selling one thing and you have like one value driver, one kind of value proposition, elevator pitch, product description, you want to make sure the marketing messaging that you put forth in a lead generation campaign is hyper specific. So I really think that that's where a lot of lead gen campaigns fall short, especially in SaaS. We do this a lot where they just won't get specific enough about who they're going after because they're like, well, there aren't that many people. And it's like, yeah, but you don't want that many people. Like you want to be able to get qualified leads, and you want to be able to kind of narrow the list, smallest viable group of people, because that's going to give you your best bet at having rich conversations or getting a call scheduled. Okay, so I really, really strongly suggest, and I honed on that for a while because I do think it's vitally important that you get as specific as possible. And then you obviously need to know pain points and value drivers. That is going to shape all of the messaging. And I would mention to you that in a lead gen campaign, everything you create needs to be short and sweet. It needs to be useful and meaningful. There can be no fluff. People will not have the patience for it. So it very much needs to be, you need to really, really understand where the individual that you are pitching to sits, what their problems are, what they care about. That's going to be incredibly important to for having any chance of getting their attention. Okay. So that's pretty much the audience. And then obviously with any campaign that you set, with anything you do, right, you need to be able to set goals. So this is, figuring out where you are going to be, like what is the ultimate goal of the lead gen, right? Almost always it's going to be to schedule a meeting. So the idea is if you're doing a lead gen campaign as a marketer, marketing, lead gen, and sales prospecting are 2 different things. If you're doing a lead gen campaign as a marketer, your goal is obviously not to sell. You can't be held accountable for that. You're not a salesperson. But your goal could be to schedule meetings. So that would be then the number of meetings that get scheduled tells you how successful the lead gen campaign was. Very important to set that goal early on and have absolute transparency over how you're measuring that, and then over, kind of how you're going to tweak the campaign if you fall short of goals. So the KPIs that we would set are that MQLs turn into leads and that we get their email addresses. Okay, and then once we get their email addresses, once they've indicated enough intent to turn into a sales qualified lead, that they book something. Very important that you lastly define the tool. So where are we doing all of this? You have to have a way to send emails. you have to have a place to house landing pages. So it's just like basic stuff, right? So make sure you have this digital properties in place. There are some companies out there who still don't have a CRM, right? You kind of have to have one to do lead gen. I mean, I guess you could email manually. I don't imagine you would want to. So making sure that you have the tools in place and that everybody knows what those tools will be and how they'll be used. All right. So then lastly, so kind of like those are the two big logistical decisions you make on the top of it, audience, campaign goals. Lastly, you want to make the offer. So I always recommend a 2-offer lead gen campaign structure, and I will tell you why. One offer should be free. This creates goodwill. It shows that you have their best interest in mind. And I think that the free tool asset needs to be something that people can use. So if you think about the structure of how I'm going to describe the lead gen campaign to you in a minute, the first touch you make to somebody in a lead gen campaign is almost always cold. So you've collected this list of people who fit the criteria that you are looking for, and you're reaching out to them. They've never heard from you. They don't know who you are. You need to do something that wins. Okay, well, they're not just asking me for something. The first thing you should do is not ask for something. If you email somebody cold out of the blue and ask for a meeting, ask for a call, you define their pain points wrong, like you're done. You're done. They'll never talk to you again. Like they'll block you. It's bad. So you have to make sure that out of the gate you are giving something to them, and that's why I think you need 2 offers and a bonus offer to start. So the 2 offers are, or well, I'll talk about first, and then I'll explain what I mean by bonus offer. So the 2-offer structure is that the first asset that you give them is something like a free exercise. So for instance, we work with an accounting firm, and they do like a P&L spreadsheet that's like a worksheet that they've created that people in like the real estate industry can use. And so they just send it to them. Hey, just thought this would be a useful tool for you, right? It has to be good enough to showcase your expertise. It has to be simple enough that they can actually use it. It can't be fake, cool. It can't be a swipe file. It needs to be something that people actually want, that people will actually use. So make sure you kind of gut check that, because you can get into the weeds with like stuff that feels new and shiny and funny, but it really does need to be useful to people if you're going to get serious-minded leads from this that are ready to buy, that are interested in what you have to offer, okay? So it's very important. So that's the hook, right? So something free is the hook, and that's the first message that you'll send. Then, if they respond positively to it, you start a flowchart. Okay, so you've got your flowchart set up, and you basically know our cold outreach is going to be this free offer of a tool. Okay, then you're going to have you're going to have 3 different options. They're either going to respond negatively and be like, player, I don't know you, get out of my house. All right, so fine, no problem, God be with you, whatever, remove the contact. Okay, you don't mess with negative leads. Lead gen is a volume game. You need thick skin, and you need to be in it to win it. You need hundreds and hundreds of people, and so you cannot get hung up on the people who don't want what you have. That's fine. They don't want it, so they don't get it. That's the first way they can respond. They might not respond, okay? There's lots of people who just ignore DMs, who ignore emails. You might get caught in spam blockers, all that kind of thing. And you absolutely need a workflow for those. People give up too easily. You need to be real scrappy to be good at this. Don't give up. Just keep going, right? Keep messaging them. And I would definitely recommend that you have, 3 messages kind of in the pipeline that you can send to those people, okay? Not annoying, but ambitious enough, right, to kind of keep the ball rolling. At the end of the day, the best thing they could do if they're in this camp is tell you no so that you stop, because then at least signs of life, right? You know they exist, and you haven't done anything to turn them off in case they want you in the future, okay? The third option is that you get a positive response. Hey, thanks, cool, great. What you would do then, if you get a hey, thanks, cool, great, is send an offer for a premium upgrade. So your marketing team and you are going to work on the language around that. But basically the idea is that little tool was the hook. And then if you get them in, you want to offer, hey, you want more of the same? Hey, you want other great insights? Then you go into a premium content piece. So likely an ebook, likely something that is maybe a huge workbook, maybe a webinar, right? And it's going to be gated. So your second, the kind of big offer, so that 2-part initial offer is going to be a gated resource so that you can achieve the goal of getting their email address, okay? So if you've gotten them into the funnel and you've hooked them with this free offer, then you say, okay, cool, if you liked this, go to this landing page and download this, okay? And when they do that, you're going to, make sure that you've got a really solid asset, right, that they're going to like. So some kind of lead magnet that they're really going to like, and that they're going to, go to a landing page and actually give you the information that you want. It is important, and part of the way that we have this set up is that we make sure that we know what data we're going to collect from them. So this step is all important in order to have really good sales conversations. There needs to be, a clear understanding of what you're collecting. So if you're collecting the name of the company, the number of employees, their revenue, their industries, their region, whatever, right? Whatever is important to you to know about that individual so that your sales team can have a meaningful conversation with them. That's what goes on the form on the landing page with the gated resource. Then you've got a contact, okay? So if they get that far, like money, marketing's job is basically over. So it kind of goes into sales court now. But let's go back up to the workflow because I want to make sure you understand. Obviously, there are two different ways this could go. So if they give a positive response to that initial cold outreach, you can send them to be like, hey, that's awesome, love it, here's some more stuff. They could not download it, right? So maybe they don't click on it. Maybe they don't go to the landing page and you don't get their email address. I would recommend then that you go back into the cold outreach sequence, okay? So that you retool and have like a secondary version of the comms that you're driving home. Hey, we get your pain points. Hey, we get your whatever. Figure out, is it not the time? Is it whatever? Like there are ways to keep, building a relationship with this person or who may not be ready to buy, who may not be the right person to buy, and leave them with a good taste in their mouth about your company. So making sure you don't see the don't download as the end of the story. Keep them in a little bit longer. Maybe you ask them to like follow your LinkedIn page or something, right? Figure out what is a soft ask that could keep them in your ecosystem. Obviously, they could download it. If they do download it, then you're going to have email follow-ups, okay? I often recommend that the email follow-up starts with like a bonus offer, that you position the discovery call as a bonus offer. So here's the idea, right? You don't want, in order to make this work, you don't necessarily want to be funneling them to like your lowest level call center salesperson. You want to be putting them in a conversation with somebody that they think can offer them value. So it's kind of the third hit of goodwill. And positioning it as a bonus offer then could be, we'll give you a free 15-minute strategy call. So you're still not doing some kind of like really cringy hard sell, like let us give you a pitch, right? Because then that feels like you're inviting them into a cold, dark room with folding chairs to listen about your timeshare, right? Like, nobody wants that. Or people are inherently, turned off by that. So figure out a way to position to keep the conversation going, but to make the discovery call itself seem like an offer. And some people will book it, in which case they would become a sales qualified lead, and some people will not book it, right? In which case you need to have emails ready to go to them to say, like, thanks so much for downloading, and then basically put them in your regular marketing pipeline. Okay, I would normally ask for questions right now, but obviously we're not live. So this is it. You collect the data, you identify the data that you want, you figure out how you're going to connect to them, you figure out what the outreach is going to look like, and then you make sure your incentives are solidified. And I would absolutely suggest having multiple versions of these kinds of things. So for me, I put together an 8-message plan. I have a writer go through and basically create 2 versions of an introduction, 2 versions of the first ask with the free tool, 2 versions of the ask with urgency, and then 2 versions of like a final ditch. A word about final ditches, okay? So please do not do this is the last time you're ever gonna hear from me. Because I can say honestly, like, and I'm not a big deal, but like when I get cold outreaches like that, I'm like, I didn't even notice you emailed me. Like, and it seems so like snarky and weird. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll never hear from you again. I don't know who you are. So it's very, very important that, you kind of keep it kind, keep it light, keep it short, keep it simple, keep it full of value. And then if they just fall off and they don't get into any kind of engagement, that's fine. Just put them in your regular marketing. And if they want to opt out, they'll opt out. No big deal. Okay. So I think that this is a really good system. I think that this system will work for a lot of people in a lot of industries. Tweak it, retool it, adapt it, customize it, fit it, but hopefully it gave you lots of good ideas. I'll make sure there's a blog version of it with some screenshots so that you can kind of dig in a little bit further and focus on the areas that piqued your interest, but I think you'll have a lot of success if you deployed lead generation campaigns like this.